My name is Patty Roberts. I'm the Deputy Director here at the City of Port St. Lucie Parks and Recreation Department. I want to thank you so much for coming out today, and for those who may be joining us via Zoom to speak on a very tough topic that we're going to talk about tonight. A few general housekeeping items, please. At the registration table, there is a voluntary sign-in sheet. It is strictly voluntary for anyone who wants to leave their name. Lastly, there will be an opportunity for questions at the very end of our presentation. Those in-person questions will be easy. Simply raise your hand and we will call on you. However, for those attending remotely, all you have to do throughout the presentation is choose the Q&A icon, and that will let us know that there's a question in the queue. And just know that we will get to those questions at the very end of the presentation. You're here tonight as the third installment of the series called HealthyU. And it's a series of conversations over the remaining months. And the topics are very real and sensitive in nature. We've covered depression and anxiety in the previous 2 months. Tonight we will tackle domestic violence. Next month we're talking trauma-informed care. After that, suicide prevention and substance use disorder. Now, those are all extremely tough conversations to have, but if they are never talked about, the issues remain lurking and diseases remain untreated. I have a very personal interest in exploring many of the topics that we'll be discussing. Just 874 days ago today, and yes, I do count in days, my son, Danny Roberts, died from a heroin overdose that was laced with fentanyl. Danny died right here in Port St. Lucie. He was 22 years old. He had fought for 8 years with his battle with addiction, and we as his parents were right there with him throughout his entire struggle. We fought for him, we fought against him, and we fought with him. But the outcome remains the same. Danny is dead from this horrible disease, and I miss him with every breath I take. But looking back on Danny's struggles as he sought treatment at more than 14 rehabs and recoveries along the way, he was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. Once, when Danny was in remission, which is my term, that meaning he had been sober for more than 2 years among the 8 years of his struggle, he and I had a great conversation when I opened the dialogue with, "What do you think came first, the mental health issues or your addiction?" And Danny thought long and hard before sharing his response. But he did feel strongly that the mental health issues, for him, the first one presenting itself was anxiety, came first. And then after that, he began to self-medicate. As his mother, I didn't see that scenario. I didn't see that progression. He had been very active in sports up until his freshman year in high school, and I didn't see the anxiety and depression that he suffered. And for that, I harbor deep regrets. So you see, that's why I'm here, to learn more about all of these topics included in HealthyU, so that I can help others who may be in need. I know the first training that I went to on the opioid epidemic awareness, if nothing else, I think what it taught the participants and myself is when you come to settings such as this, if nothing else, it helps to know that, hey, I'm not the only one. I am not the only one going through this struggle. And that is some solace and some comfort to me. But in all of my experience in helping Danny, I want to be very clear. When I was helping him move through his 8-year battle with addiction, domestic violence was never something he or I or my family ever encountered. I want to be very clear on that. However, as a voracious reader, I know too well of the countless families that are truly impacted, and some devastatingly so. And now, throughout these days of COVID, and prior to the pandemic, the world in which we live in is moving faster than ever before. Technology has exploded, and our means of connectivity is vastly different from how our parents before us connected and interacted with society. Many of us, due to circumstances outside of our control, feel isolated and unconnected with our loved ones, with our colleagues, our associates. This can leave us feeling depressed, out of touch, and with a very weary outlook on life in general. Anxiousness has become our very way of life as we wake up each morning not knowing what our day will bring. Finances, food security, housing, employment, all prove to be huge factors that can heighten or exasperate anxiety and depression and all of these topics in us all, including domestic violence. And amid all of this depression, anxiety, domestic violence incidents are increasing at a dramatic rate. I have had conversations, recent conversations with our law enforcement agency, PSLPD, and they tell me through COVID, those numbers are on the rise like you wouldn't believe. They're soaring. Being in the middle of a pandemic heightens those emotions, and they aren't always expressed in a healthy manner. And that is why I'm so very proud of each and every one of you who has joined us today to talk about this very tough topic, domestic violence. And so today, it's my extreme pleasure to share with you an important message from a subject matter expert on the topic of domestic violence. Allow me to introduce, and it's my pleasure to introduce, Ms. Monique Coleman to HealthyU this evening. Monique has always had a passion for helping individuals in need. Monique grew up in South Florida and moved to Port St. Lucie in 2009. She recently earned her master's degree from Nova Southeastern University. Monique is currently employed as the prevention coordinator at Tykes Teens Incorporated in Palm City. Previously, Monique worked at a local domestic violence shelter as an advocate for 7 years. 5 of those years, she was primarily working with youth. In 2010, Monique decided to go back to school for human resources at Indian River State College. She received her bachelor's degree in 2012. Upon graduating, she began working as a hotline advocate in the shelter. Monique fell in love with helping the survivors and their families. Monique has had the opportunity to grow within her agency. She has held several positions, which have provided her with experience and training. And so without further ado, please may I present Ms. Monique Coleman.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to thank the city of Port St. Lucie for having these conversations. When I tell you a lot of people don't talk about a lot of these topics, with me seeing the list of topics that were being presented and being able to talk about domestic violence was such an honor for me. I personally have not experienced domestic violence. However, I have seen it through family, through friends. I've been the one that has offered, help, offered support, been that person that has just talked to people, just allowed them to talk to me about some of the things that they were going through. And so, like I said, I'm very honored to be here and have this conversation with you guys. So our objectives for today is that first, participants will learn the definition and some of the statistics of domestic violence. We will identify some warning signs, understand the importance of safety planning, and then also discuss some community resources that are here for you guys locally. So let's look at the scope. 1 in 4 women, and I want to repeat that, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 4 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence. Intimate partner contact, sexual violence, and or intimate partner stalking with impacts such as injury, fearfulness, post-traumatic stress disorder, use of victim services, contraction of a sexually transmitted disease, etc. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. This includes a range of behaviors such as slapping, shoving, pushing, and in some cases might not even be considered domestic violence. And you'll see that that's in quotation marks. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So when we talk about domestic violence or DV, you'll hear me refer to those two things on both ways. On the Treasure Coast, does it hit home for us? And it does. According to WPTV.com, in the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee counties, domestic violence cases have increased a whopping 79% during the same time frame. And they're with what they're referring to is down in Palm Beach County. They were starting to see that during COVID, some of their calls and services that they were receiving stayed about the same, give or take. But we were able to see right here on the Treasure Coast that it increased drastically. On the Treasure Coast, over 20,000 cases of domestic violence have been reported within the first 5 months of 2020. COVID-19 has set the stage for an exacerbated domestic violence crisis, with abused and the abuser spending more time than usual in close quarters. This is a quote from our local certified domestic violence shelter.
Welcome to Measure.
So, what is domestic violence? You'll see here I have both the legal definition
We have a 100 milliliter graduated
and the
cylinder,
working
and it's marked off
definition.
every 1 milliliter.
So when we talk about the legal definition, this is what the state statute says. It says domestic violence. This means assault, aggravated assault, battery, aggravated assault, kidnapping, false imprisonment, any criminal or criminal offense resulting in physical injury or death of one or more family or a household member by another family or household member. So to kind of go on a little bit more and talk about what a family or household member is defined by. It's defined by spouses, former spouses, persons related by blood or by marriage, persons who are presently residing together, as if a family who have resided in the past as if a family. So again, basically, these are people that are in one household, right? So it could be sisters. And for this instance, and we like to refer to it as family violence, so to speak. You could have people who are in a house that may have a child together, but were never married. This is that definition of domestic violence legally. So when we talk about the working definition, and this is from DCF's website, domestic violence is willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior. I just want to stop right there for a moment. Because if we look at the legal definition, it focuses on the physical abuse, right? But here, with the working definition, abusive behavior, and it's further to speak on as a part of a systematic pattern of power and control, perpetrated by one intimate partner. Now, we're not talking about family violence. This is an intimate partner against another. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, and emotional abuse. The frequency and severity of domestic violence can vary drastically. So when we talk about the types of abuse, you have physical, sexual, emotional and psychological abuse, coercive control, financial abuse. It is not always easy to determine the early stages of a relationship if one person will become abusive. It's not like you're going to be able to tell right when you meet this person that, oh, they're an abuser. I'm going to step away. There are some red flags that may start to present themselves as the relationship goes on. Domestic violence tend to intensify over time. Abusers may seem wonderful and perfect initially, but gradually become more aggressive and controlling as the relationship continues. Again, it's all about gaining and maintaining that power and control over their partner. Each relationship is different, and not every relationship follows the exact same pattern. Regardless, abusers purposely use numerous tactics of abuse to instill fear in their victim and maintain power and control over them. So this is the power and control wheel. So you can see here, it's not just one type. Abuse is not just physical. And I also want to say abuse does not see color. It does not see race. It does not see gender. It does not see your economic status. It doesn't see any of those things. It can happen to anyone. So when we look at this, with using intimidation, this could be just a look, giving them the look. It could be making gestures or smashing things, abusing pets, because it could be as simple as abusing your pet. If I can do this to your dog, imagine what I could do to you. Using emotional abuse, so putting them down, making them feel bad about themselves, calling them names. Using isolation, and this is something that we're really seeing right now with everyone's being home, with the COVID, everyone is having to be home. What happens? You try to get away, you're trying to get away, but then like at least you may have some relief being able to go to work, but now that you're home, in the home, you're stuck at home with your abuser. What can you do? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So with using isolation, controlling who she sees, and I also would like to say, you'll see here a lot of the material that I do talk about may say she. However, men can be abused as well. So he or she could experience any of these. So who the person talks to, who they see, where they go. And then also using jealousy to try to justify their actions. Oh, well, I'm just a little jealous. No. Minimizing, denying, and blaming, so making light about the abuse, not taking their concern seriously about it, saying that they were the one that caused the abuse. Well, had you had dinner prepared, by the time I got home from work, this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had to hit you. Using the children to make them feel guilty about the abuse. Using the children to to send messages, threatening to take the children away. Using male privilege, treating her like a servant, making all the decisions. Oh, I'm the man of the house, so to speak. Being the one to define what the gender roles are. Oh, I'm the man in this relationship. This is how I'm supposed to act. You're supposed to be submissive. This is how you're supposed to do. Using economic abuse, so preventing them from getting money, getting a job, having her to have to, or him or her to have to ask for money, not being able to have access to the family income. And then also using coercion and threats, so making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt them, threatening to leave, threatening to commit suicide. Oh, if you leave me, I'm just gonna kill myself. Threatening to report her to, or him or her to child welfare. Oh, well, if you leave, they're going to give me custody of the children. And then making them do illegal things. So let's talk about some warning signs. I have this here, and I want to say, if you or someone you know is experiencing any type of abuse, there is help. This presentation is meant to be very informative to you guys. It may not be, I always say, this might not be exactly for you, but it could be for you to tell someone else. So if your partner or someone you know, they're bullying you, threatening you, controlling you, as simple as accusing you of having an affair, blames you for the abuse, criticizes you, tells you what to wear or how you should look, threatens to kill you or someone close to you, throws things or punches the wall when they're angry. And this is not a complete list. The list goes on. Yells at you, makes you feel small. Your partner controls your money. So they keep cash or credit cards away from you, puts you on an allowance and makes you explain every single dollar. Partner cuts you off from family or friends, isolation, keeps close tabs on where you go and with whom, embarrasses you in front of others and makes you want to avoid people. Your partner physically abuses you, so they attack you with weapons, keeps you from eating, sleeping, or getting medical care. And your partner sexually abuses you, so forces you to have sex with them, makes you feel as if you owe them sex, and won't use condoms or allow you to get birth control. So a lot of people ask this question: why does she stay? Why does he stay? But more commonly we hear, why does she stay? And it's not working in a domestic violence shelter, there were so many reasons why the women stayed in the relationship. It's very complex. Family dynamics. The first 72 hours when a victim leaves are the most dangerous because the batterer is looking for them. It's the most dangerous. This is their first time this victim has left, and now they're trying to gain that control back. So you would probably see a lot of text messages, a lot of phone calls, where are you? Lots of threats happening. This is why it's so important to know the resources that are here that we're gonna talk about a little bit later, and to know how to get to those places. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone call me and say, Monique, I know someone that's going through domestic violence. What's the number to the shelter? And I will provide that with them at the drop of a dime. So finances is another thing that can also play a part in them staying. So it could be, for instance, what if she doesn't have a job? What if she doesn't have a car? How's she gonna get around? If there's children, and we'll talk about that next. If there's children, what am I gonna do with these kids? How am I going to take one child, two children, three children to a shelter? Especially not now. How can I do that? So when we talk about abuse and domestic violence effects on children, 1 in 15 are exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these are eyewitnesses to the abuse. I wish I could say that the children don't see it, but they do. In my experience, while I was working at a local domestic violence shelter, I was the children's advocate. So when the children came into the shelter with their parents, I was the one that would meet with them and would just talk with them. I would see, do they know why they're there? Do they know where this place is? And I can tell you it was heartbreaking at times. It was. Children's immediate reaction to experiencing domestic violence include generalized anxiety, sleeplessness, aggression, difficulty concentrating. They may have nightmares, high levels of activity, and then also separation anxiety. A lot of the kids are wondering, where's daddy? Where's daddy? Why are we here? Why are we here? Domestic violence creates a violent and hostile environment that can have devastating effects on children, both physical and emotional. Children who have been exposed to domestic violence can become fearful and anxious. They can become concerned for themselves, for their siblings, and their parents. I've seen where you have the older siblings that are in the family that come into the shelter. Some of the older siblings, they're the ones that are now taking on the role of being mom or dad. They're making sure they're tending to their other siblings. They may begin to feel worthless and powerless. Children exposed to violence may have difficulty paying attention. They may display depression. They may have withdrawals. In the long run, children who witness or experience violence at the home are much more likely to perpetrate the cycle of violence in their own relationships if we don't talk about it. This isn't to say that every single child that goes through, that witnesses domestic violence is going to perpetrate or be a victim. That's why we're having these conversations, so that we can continue to talk about it. We can get them help. We have a lot of children that are very resilient, and they see that this was wrong. No, we don't do this. And they shy away from it. But if we don't talk about it, how can we actually get help? So another reason why they may stay is because substance abuse, trauma. What if this person is the reason why they started using drugs? What if they experienced a traumatic event and this is what keeps them there? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons why a person chooses to stay in the situation that they're in. And it's not up to us to judge them. It's up to us to provide support, to provide that listening ear. And then lastly, law enforcement. A lot of times in different communities, different cultures, they may not have the best relationship with law enforcement. What if you had someone, there was an altercation and the neighbors called law enforcement and she said, no, nothing happened. We were just playing around. It was not a big deal. And then next thing you know, it happens again, and it happened, and then nothing happens, and he gets upset because law enforcement was called. There's a lot of people don't know that there is help. Law enforcement is put in place to help. There's a community, we have to start looking at community coordinated responses. Throughout the state of Florida, there are programs in place to help identify those who are at a higher risk of homicide and to offer them services. So I do want to kind of focus on talk about a little bit more the impact of how domestic violence can affect children. I will say that this is a trigger warning. What you guys are going to hear right now is a 911 phone call from a 6-year-old girl. This was one of many. If at any point you feel as if this is too much, you can excuse yourself. I won't try to play too much of the video. It's just an audio call, so you'll see like the subtitles on the captions on the screen. But I do want to say it is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. So if you need to excuse yourself, please do so. And this goes for those of you that are in person, and then also everyone that is watching virtually.
What is his name? Your father's name? Stepfather. Okay, how old is he? What's going on? What's going on? How's it hurting her? Okay, don't cry. We're going to send the police. Okay, now where's your mother at right now? Yeah, they're on the way. Don't keep you on the line until they get there. Okay, is your front door open? Oh, no. Okay, you go and lock it. Come back to the phone so the officers come in. Just do it. Okay. What's the matter? Okay, the police are on the way, okay? Hello? Lisa? The police are on the way, okay?
This was one of many phone calls. I didn't want to show too much of this because the actual call was actually longer than that. But you see how this 6-year-old, how she had to grow up. She was the one making the phone call. And you can just hear in her voice how she just wanted this to be over. This particular video sound has been played and pretty much has been put in place to kind of help everyone. This little girl, Lisa, she did not even know that this would be as big as it was in the domestic violence community. She didn't know that this was something that was being talked about. Like, everyone was using this to kind of say, hey, domestic violence affects children. It really does. So talking about complexities, we have to start shifting our views, our societal views, shifting our language away from victim blaming. And I have a quote here. Victim blaming occurs when the victim of a crime or wrongful act are held entirely or partially responsible for the transgressions committed against them. So when we say, why doesn't she just leave? Or, well, she shouldn't have worn what she had on. Well, she should have had dinner prepared, right? I mean, she should have had the children in bed at a certain time. When we say these things, we're not holding the batterer accountable for their actions. So victim blaming is prevalent in mainstream American culture. You see it in music, you see it in films, you see it in TV shows, and even on social media posts. If we shift our language from why doesn't she just leave to holding the perpetrator accountable for their actions, why doesn't she just leave changes why did he hit her? Why did he do these things? Or why, even if the perpetrator is a female, why did she do those things? Let's hold them accountable for their actions. So some reasons, again, why they stay. The fear that the abuser's actions will become more violent if they leave. I'll be honest, there may be unsupportive family and friends. Knowledge of the difficulties of being a single parent and reduced financial circumstances. The victim feels that the relationship is a mix of good times, love, and hope, along with the manipulation, intimidation, and etc., and fear. The victim's lack of knowledge of access to safety and support. So this is why having these conversations, conversations available to where we're all talking about these things. Like I said, towards the end of our presentation today, I will provide you guys with some local organizations that can provide assistance. Fear of losing custody of any of the children if they leave or divorce the abuser. Fear the abuser will hurt or even kill their children. Lack of means to support themselves and or the children financially. Lack of access to cash, bank accounts, assets. Lack of having somewhere to go. You have no friends or family to help. No money for a hotel. Shelter programs may be full, or you may have a limited length of stay. This kind of goes into the unknown as well. I mean, I know what's going to happen here. When I'm out there, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't, especially if you have children. Fear that homelessness may be their only option if they leave. For religious or cultural beliefs and practices may not support divorce and may dictate that outdated gender roles and keep the victim trapped in their relationship. Belief that a two-parent household is better for the children despite the abuse. So when we talk about safety planning, there is help. There's help, there's help, there's help. One of the big things about safety planning is that you want to empower the survivor. You want to empower them. Remember, I talked about abuse is all about gaining and maintaining power and control over that other person. So imagine what we can do if we empower her. We give her that power back. We give him that power back. They are now the driver or the captain of their own ship. That in itself is a lot. Gaining control, again. Sometimes we need just a little bit of guidance. Just a little bit of guidance. With that, so many things can happen. And then support. Knowing that there is someone there. A lot of times people would come into a shelter and have no help at all. A lot of times they just want someone to listen to them. So the importance of these three things here, empowerment, gaining control, and support, this is what's going to help a survivor. Supporting someone in need. So do check in on your friend to see how they're doing and ask if something is wrong. Don't wait for them to approach you if you suspect a problem. Don't wait. Sometimes it is just literally, like I've heard this quote before, it starts with hello. Hey, how are you? How's your day going? Express concern. Don't judge them or blame them. So it could look as, hey, the other day I noticed that you were fine, and then John came around and your whole mood just changed. Is everything okay? I'm a little concerned about you. Judging them or blaming them, why did your whole aura, your whole mood change when John came around? What's wrong with you, girl? Listen and tell them that it's not their fault, because it's not. It's not their fault. Don't make a decision for them or pressure them. I'll ask you this. Would you, and I'll use this as a perfect example. If a hurricane was coming and you knew it was going to hit your house, would you leave your house and go to a hurricane shelter? Probably not. You're going to weigh your options, right? You're going to see, okay, is it going to be a direct hit? Is it going to be a category 1? Is it going to be a category 5? A lot of that is going to play a part in your decision. So we can't just automatically say, well, you need to go to a shelter, or if not, I can't help you. That's not the answer. Offer any resources you think may be helpful to them. Don't give advice. Right now, she's had someone probably telling her what to do or telling him what to do. Listen, offer support. How can I help you? And then lastly, support their decisions versus place conditions on your support. Well, I'll help you if you leave versus, okay, right now you're choosing to stay. How can I help you be safe? What are some things that I can do? I notice that they don't abuse you when I'm around. How can I be there for you? When someone's going through a storm, your silent presence is more powerful than a million empty words. Just being there. So when we talk about safety planning even more, knowing resources, understanding the lethality of your situation, think through the specific safety risks that you may face. Take steps to plan for minimizing your risk and promoting safety. Establishing your independence. This could be opening a savings account, checking credit card that is in your name. It could also mean you're just putting money aside, putting cash aside. Leaving money, extra keys, copies of important documents, extra medicine, clothes with someone you trust. So if you are planning on leaving, it's an easy way to leave. Determine safe people you can stay with if you are planning to leave. Review and rehearse your safety plan. And keep a packed bag at a relative's house or friend's home. If that's not an option, I always say you could keep a hurricane bag just in case. Something like, let's say that hurricane is coming, that hurricane category 5 is coming. We have copies of our important documents, and this is everyone in the household, not just the mom and the children, whoever's leaving, everyone's things in this hurricane bag. The most important thing I will say with safety planning is reaching out to some of the local resources, because they have trained hotline advocates that can talk with them through the steps to leave. Plan where you will go if you have to leave. So knowing these things ahead of time can help. We understand that sometimes all of this is not possible at all the time, at any given moment. It could be you found your window and you're leaving and you take it. So community resources. I always like to say that there is hope. So there is the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And then there is DCF that anyone in the state of Florida can call this number right here, and they will be put in contact with, they'll be directly connected to the certified domestic violence shelter that is in their area. So for anyone that is on the Treasure Coast, Martin, St. Lucie, or Indian River counties, they will be automatically routed to the only certified local certified domestic violence shelter here, which is Safe Space. I wanted to also include the Race Crisis Center, because a lot of times, as I spoke about, you'll see that sex, rape, these are things that are happening in the relationship. And so a lot of times we will connect them here. And then also there are some local domestic violence awareness agencies that are here in place. You have We Leap, and there's their phone number, and then also the Ruffs Foundation as well. And so as I close, I want to leave you with this quote. I raise up my voice not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.
You gave us so much good stuff to think about. I don't know about the participants. For me, I did. I learned a lot there. I want to personally thank you, Ms. Coleman, for coming out and taking your time to share this important topic with us. We do wrap up a little bit. We have one more speaker in the house, but I do want to kind of segue into this. Some of you may be wondering, why is Parks and Rec involved in presenting HealthyU? We know traditional Parks and Rec agencies provide parks and programs for residents to enjoy their leisure opportunities. But why P&R and mental health topics? The reason why is actually, for me, very simple. It is our commitment to serving our community in whatever capacity in order to advance and foster healthy lifestyles for everyone in our community. And so I want everyone to please take a look at our latest publication. It's actually entitled Inside the Outdoors. Those of you who are in the house, you do have a physical copy of it. I am going on to where Inside the Outdoors can be found at pslparks.com. And it essentially provides an A through Z guide of every program and event and activity that we have in Parks and Rec. I am not here, nor is my next speaker here, to sell any product, any membership, anything. We are not here to do that. We are here to simply talk about how Parks and Recreation can help people, especially during these times of isolation, anxiety, depression, perhaps domestic violence situations. But everything we do, whether it's a special event, a fitness program, athletics, golf lessons, or youth programming, is done with the mission to get our residents connected in whatever form they feel comfortable with so that our community is unified and given the necessary tools to thrive, whether it's through a global pandemic such as COVID-19 or otherwise. So now I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome, and this young lady comes to us. This is our third HealthyU, and she has been with us for all three. And it's my extreme pleasure to share with you Ann Stadius. Ann is our recreation manager. She oversees our two fitness centers. And please understand, this person will not sell you anything. If nothing else, her message is so practical and so powerful. And I defer that further to Ms. Ann Stadius.
Thank you, Patty. So I'm blessed, I guess, to say that I don't have any personal experience with domestic violence in my personal, immediate family. But when Patty asked me or told me about this particular session, I was thinking, what can I contribute? What can I say? And I was thinking about it, and I can recall a story. It happened in our fitness center 4 or 5 years ago. We had a woman she came in every afternoon right around or right after lunchtime, 40-ish, I don't know, she was friendly enough, but sort of aloof, and didn't typically look battered or abused in any stereotypical way that I would imagine. But for weeks and months, she came in on a pretty regular basis. She might have been a little jumpy, but everybody's everybody. They do what they do. And over time and talking to her, and I'm going to just kind of shorten the story because it could go into details and length, but over time and talking to her, she started revealing a little bit about herself. Started sort of, I guess, trusting us. We, bantered around and had conversations. We helped her with her exercises, helped her with her form, or suggested something else she could do. Some days she'd be in a pretty good mood, some days, not so much. Well, and I don't recall if it was a husband I don't think it was a husband. I think it was a long-term partner, but it's neither here nor there. He brought her there. He allowed her to come there. She would come and work out for, I don't, right off the top of my head, remember the time. I'm going to say about an hour and a half. And I mean, almost as if there was some sort of an alarm, she'd be done and out the door. He brought her and he picked her up. She didn't drive herself. She knew how to drive. She had a driver's license. But he controlled, and this was found out over weeks and months and, you know, little tiny bits of conversation. He controlled everything. She had the money, only cash, no credit card. She had the money that he gave her. She wasn't allowed to drive the car. She had to make sure she had, you said something, Monique, about dinner on the table. And again, we found all this out. One day, surprisingly, she started talking about wanting to leave. And I'm not schooled in this. I'm certainly not the expert. But there's a little fire in me that's like, leave. What can we do? What do you need to do? She had a friend that had agreed to help her leave. And again, over months and over time, she, I guess, was allowed to drive herself there. Some of it's I've forgotten, but she was allowed to drive herself there. So she would drive herself here to the fitness center. She would work out. She always told us how it was her opportunity. She felt safe. She felt she did something for herself. She enjoyed it. It helped her. It was her way of, as we know, exercise is great for depression and great for anxiety, and it'll clear your mind. And there's so many benefits to exercise. That's a whole other topic we don't have time for me to go into it. But she started talking to us about leaving, but she couldn't let him know. Could she leave a bag? I said, well, yeah, leave a bag, that's fine. But how is she going to get anything? How is she going to have anything? Well, she carried a very small gym bag. Could have been a gym bag, could have been a big purse, don't really know, but that's what she came in with every time. I said, squirrel away an extra pair of socks. So she started over time, and she would just put things in her bag, things that I guess she would want to take with her when she finally, left this person. She then came in one day and wanted to know if we'd make a copy of something for her. And then she started opening up a little more. She needed some, I guess, legal documents, some that he knew and he checked and he had possession of. But he had started going somewhere for a certain amount of time, and that coincided with the time that she came to the fitness center. So we talked about it. And I don't know how we sort of got into it, just kind of happened over time. We talked about it, and I said, could you bring that paper with you and make a copy of it and put it back before he gets home and sees it? And she was really nervous and really scared, and sometimes she would say yes, and then we wouldn't see her for days, but then she would come back. Only a couple of times did she have any visible sort of bruising or marks, nothing horribly, not movie style, but, And over time, she got the paperwork she needed, and she had her little bag, or good-sized gym bag, stuffed. And she came in and she said, the next time I come in, it's going to be the last time I come in. It sort of startled me because I wasn't sure what she was telling me. She said, my friend is going to drive me to the airport. She had saved enough of the few dollars over all these months to get herself an airline ticket to go back to whatever state her family was from. She had her little bag of prized possessions, and she had secured someone to drive her to the airport. And she came in one more time, and that was the last we saw of her. She got in the car, the person picked her up, and she was gone. Now, I don't know what happened to her. I've not heard from her. But in my mind, she did it. She was strong enough. She found some support. Were we the stereotypical resources that Monique spoke about? No, but you can find resources, like you said, find someone to talk to, find someone to talk to. We didn't hook her up with any, safe space, or I guess, in fact, we were her safe space. But the thing that I just want to let everybody know is getting a place that you can go and do something to make yourself feel better. This woman built her confidence up enough that she could do that. I'm sure that first time that she took that little pair of socks, and it literally was socks the first time. I don't know if she needed socks or not, but that's what she did. She had socks, and she came in, and she pulled them out of her purse, and she put them in the bag, and that was step one. And she would sit on a bike and ride a bike, or sit on a machine and, do biceps, not to get strong, to defend herself against her, abuser. Just, it was confidence building for her. It was what she needed to take that step out the door. So there's someone everybody can talk to. Sometimes a person in the grocery store that you don't know is super friendly. The cashier. You can talk to them, We have people in our parks. They ride around and clean up the parks and keep them so beautiful and ready for you. Sometimes people don't look approachable, and they are. You just have to say hi, and, my name is, and it's easy to talk to a stranger. They don't know you. They don't know anything about you. You can tell them anything. They don't know anybody you know. They're not going to repeat your story to anybody that it matters to. Find a place, find some outlet. If you can take a walk, nature is so cathartic and healing. It'll free your mind. If you can find a place that you like to exercise, you can go to a fitness center, you can go to a class. One of the people in our audience has been to so many of our classes, could probably tell you that if you have a bad day and you have exercise in your life, you can help yourself a little bit. You can clear your mind and feel better about things, or think a little more clearly about things. Monique pointed out a whole lot of options and resources, and I don't know what they all are. I wouldn't just be able to reel them off like you can, but I know that they're there. But there's also resources there that I don't think the general public would just typically automatically think about. As Patty said, Parks and Rec has a lot of resources. We don't want you to come and buy a membership. You can to our fitness centers. We'll go to a park or use one of our outdoor fitness stations, or, take a walk in your own neighborhood, or, Patty loves this one, so I'm going to do it for her. Stand by the kitchen counter when you're fixing the dinner for that person that's abusing you, and do push-ups, leaning against the counter. You're strengthening your body. Pretty soon, you're going to start thinking, wow, I feel stronger and I feel better. I used to teach my senior fit class on Thanksgiving when you're putting the turkey in the oven. Do squat. I'm not going to get out of camera view, but do squats and put the turkey in the oven and come back up. You can exercise in so many ways, and look, we're all laughing because y'all thinking about doing that exercise made you feel better. Right? So, I don't know if anything I said will resonate with anybody, but if it just helps one person, I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ann. And you took the words right out of my mouth. Microphone. Thank you, Ann, so much. That was very powerful. I apologize. I was not on the mic. Thank you, Ann, so much. That was so powerful. And yes, it did resonate for me anyway. But it just does show you that, and that's what the beauty of Ann's message is. It's very simple. We're not here to sell anything. We're just here to talk about these topics and how perhaps Parks and Rec has something that can help you get through what we're all going through today. So that's what we're here for. But before, during, and after the current global crisis, your Parks and Rec team has been and will be hard at work for you. We do appreciate this opportunity to present just a glimpse into what we have to offer our guests in order for them to thrive and prosper. I truly hope that you guys will join us again for session 4 of HealthyU, where we'll discuss with another subject matter expert the topic of trauma-informed care. That video that Monique showed is, for me, a classic example of what trauma looks like to a 6-year-old girl. And that will resonate in her life throughout her adulthood. And that's something we as a community and as a society need to recognize, is how that event shaped and traumatized that little girl. So that's trauma-informed care is the next session, which is going to be held, same scenario, in this room as well and through Zoom on Friday, February 12th from 6:30 till 8 o'clock. I truly hope to see you there. As always, the Parks and Recreation Department is honored and privileged to have the daily opportunity to provide this community with parks, amenities, and programs which increase the quality of life in this city, and we enable its residents and ourselves to learn, grow, and serve every day. That's our commitment to you. So, thank you all for joining us tonight. I do want to give an opportunity for anyone to ask any questions of Monique, Ann, myself, any. If there are any questions or comments, now is a great opportunity. And for those of you joining online, allow me to remind you again, if you're welcome, if you have a question or a comment, you can use the Q&A button on the Zoom platform. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close out the third installment of HealthyU. Thank you all so much for coming. This was truly a very, very tough conversation to have, but I feel like a whole lot of great information was shared. Thank you to our subject matter expert for her time in coming down, Ms. Monique Coleman. And thank you to Ann Stadius, our communications department, and everyone. Have a safe and healthy weekend. Thank you all.